All right. Welcome everybody back to another wonderful Tuesday in this blessed month of November where everything is dark, but not here. Everything is super bright and happy because you're about to learn a lot of really, really cool things about a really, really important subject. And we are super excited to have a really cool team with us today because not only do I have my colleague Isabella, who is a really, really cool woman in tech. I also have Henrik Horn Andersen here from Implement Consulting to shed some light on some of the important work that he is looking into in this subject as well. And Isabella and Henrik, you've been cooperating together through Acti for a couple of years and know each other maybe not really well, but you at least know each other and have worked on a few things together.
Mm.
So I actually wanted to maybe shake it up a little bit and ask Isabella to if you wanted to say a few words about Henrik and the work you've done together.
We've worked on a few projects together, but also in a larger group with Implement and some of your colleagues, right, Henrik? And I think I've always seen you as a very professional, thoughtful, ambitious person when we work together, and uh, always have something very clever to say. And you definitely want to listen every time you open up your mouth, Henrik. So that's very cool.
Thank you.
And
Mm.
Henrik, would you like to say a few things about yourself, about who you are in a professional world?
I thought I was about to praise Isabella, but we can do that later.
We can take that later. She's hot-headed enough.
Yeah.
All right. Also, my name's Henrik. I've been in Implement for yeah 20 some years, I would say. So it's been a crazy ride to be part of a company growing from 50 people to a couple of thousand. Been sitting in the board, been in strategy, 12 years heading up our leadership area. Also had a couple of years internally as a kind of acting COO, running culture projects. I think the last 10, 15 years, I've also headed up all our internal training. I've been writing some books on facilitation, all kinds of things. And now I'm heading more and more into the space of leading digital change, you could say. And besides that, I've also been acting really actively across our industry with other consulting companies and in our board of management consulting companies and sharing that. And if everything goes well tomorrow, I'll be re-elected as chairman of our consulting industry. So you heard it here first.
We are
All
crossing our
right.
fingers, Henrik. Wow.
But on that, I've been actually working quite a lot with how to get more women in consulting and how to pave the way for more diverse industry. So it's an important topic that it's close to my heart. This one about biases, and I'm gonna probably showcase a lot of them myself the next hour, which is
We hope so.
Yeah.
But I will not cheat you, Henrik. If you would like to share a sentence about Isabella,
Oh, please do.
then the floor is yours.
so I think Isabella has been coming into this active, playful environment in a really really cool way with a lot of energy and always kind of pushing with this purpose of how to create a more playful and learning impactful way of approaching things and I know that we are not in Implement as easy always to deal with and have a lot of things that we want to do, but I think you keep on really really passionate and that is super super contagious. So thanks for leaning in with a lot of energy, Isabella.
Thank you very much.
That's it.
That's kind. Thank you.
So that is the dream team for the next 55 minutes. And please, if you are tuning in out there, write in your comments, say, hi, I'm here. We would love to hear from you and see who's joining us today for this live event. And we will keep track of your comments. But we will move on up here to the agenda of the day. So we do this every week and we are trying to keep the agenda, but time always seems to be a little bit of an issue because there are so many cool things to talk about when we have these great expert guests with us. But I'm going to try to make a super quick introduction to Acti for those of you who don't know what it is. And then we're going to look into very, very briefly a few details around the game we're going to play today, and then we're all going to play the game. So I'm going to showcase Henrik and Isabella playing the game against each other up here on the screen, and everybody tuning in will get the opportunity to play the game as well themselves. And if we have time, we will get into some Q&A, and then that is probably the hour. So this is our very favorite slide. I don't know how many times you've seen it, Henrik, probably not the first, but we like to call it our bragging slide.
But it becomes more and more cool every time I see it. So that's nice to see how it evolves, not only in years, but also in games and certified across the world. So that's nice.
We're at least moving in the direction we want to.
Yeah.
Isabella, do you want to do your little pitch on our favorite bragging slide?
I could do that, but I feel like we need to have more blue spots everywhere. So all the blue spots are where we have all our clients, and I feel like it should be more blue. But we've been in the market of game-based learning for the past between 15 and 20 years, and we started out during games as a also being part of a consultancy, and now we then jumped out of the consultancy world and are now collaborating with Implement and other consultancies to do the hard work of the trainings and the facilitating the games. And then we went into developing a software platform that now contains of 150 games and simulations. And we added on also now the opportunity to design your own games as well, now via AI. So a lot of happens over the last 15 years. The cool thing about it is that everything is based on theories and methods. And right now on the platform, there are 70 different theories and methods in there, but almost every day new methods are actually being added to the platform by all our wonderful clients and partners. And then on top of that, we have partners and certified collaborators around the world. So we are a global company, which I think is very cool. I'm very proud of that, since we are just a small office out of Roskilde in Denmark. So yeah, that's a little bit about Acti.
Yeah. Perfect, Isabella. And hello to Rikke, who's joining in, also a D&I passionate enthusiast. So very happy to have you here. Hope you are going to play the game with us. Okay, so these are just some of the pains that we like to address in our simulation games. And Henrik, I don't know if you've seen any of our events before, but for this particular slide, I would love to hear. You've just mentioned so many different areas that you have sort of focused on within your professional life. Do you have a favorite pain? I mean, I know it sounds super weird, but
A favorite pain.
A favorite pain.
No pain, no gain. I think the part around change management and leadership development is probably the ones that I've been working the most with, but also cultural change. I think is taking up more and more, both of my work, but also of companies' work. And I think post-pandemic, it has been kind of growing, at least in our projects, a lot. And now I think the digital change becomes more and more, both with AI adoption, but also more classical, digital changes that companies are going through. So probably more on that side than on the CRM sales sides.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Henrik. So, and as you most likely all will gather once you start playing an Acti game, is that you can really not separate these pains. They are all completely tangled together. So even if you are passionate about working with change management, you cannot really take leadership and management out of the equation. Like, you have to always kind of keep 7 other things in top of mind when you're dealing with organizational work, right? You cannot just separate it into a single entity, which is why it's so complicated. And that is exactly what we're doing here at Acti. Is we're trying to kind of simulate exactly what can happen to prepare you best for a very intangible process. All right. And the learning spaces we have at Acti are sort of, we can do fully physical. That's the original Acti way. You can see the floorboard here behind me. So that is where you can also see in the pictures where you are physically together, you're standing, you're moving little pieces around the board as if you were playing a big game of Monopoly or something like that. And then we have the digital version of our tool, which is, of course, digital. That's also what you're going to be seeing here today. But I guess the really sweet spot of using Acti, I would at least say, Isabella, you can correct, and Henrik as well, you can correct me if you disagree, is this hybrid of having actually both the physical and the digital to sort of really support each other. I don't know, Isabella, if you want to share some insights from the sales about how it's really being done in the majority out there.
Yeah, no, you're completely right, Ida. It's the hybrid solution. I think it's grasping all the learnings on the physical board, but at the same time collecting data online, receiving your data report, and for facilitators to use to host you and other tools online becomes very important. But also because it's a global tool being used, being able to run it all on Teams or Zoom and so on. Definitely makes it important that you can do that 100% online and digitally.
Yeah, and especially with the data as well, right? Like you get this super cool insights when you gather everybody's data and can kind of compare. How do you normally use it, Henrik? Is it primarily physically or digitally or a bit of both?
Often a combination. I like the game board also to kind of just explain also theories and kind of take you through the circle of change, and then you could often play it more digitally and but then showcase it on the board. But I think the most challenging but also fun way has been to do a hybrid version where it's also connected rooms. So have physical boardrooms in several rooms that are then connected virtually. That's the more
All
challenging
right.
version, but it's actually a really cool way of feeling that you're in the same room, but also have something happening locally in the room. It's not often, but that's where I rely on more skilled tech people than myself.
That's an extra level, Henrik.
Yeah, it is. All right. There we go. So the game we are going to look into today is a game we have that is called Corporate Bias: The Path to an Inclusive Workplace. And you basically are getting this role of being hired into a company where you more or less have to kind of make an analysis of, well, what biases are at play in this company, what kind of diversity, how can you say, like diversity buffers are there out there that might actually be stopping this fight for a more equal workplace, which is something that, of course, I think is very important. And I'm sure you agree, Isabella and Henrik. We were just talking before we started live here that this is also something that you have become really passionate about recently. That's something you've actually thrown yourself into. Also with a podcast Isabella mentioned with more women in consulting. So I don't know if you feel like adding a few thoughts to that work that you're doing.
And it's not only been me doing some work there. Actually, Rikke Brøner was part of I think the original cast of the first generation of work on more women in consulting. There's also actually quite cool Instagram profile that is a kind of relay between cool women across consulting companies that are kind of giving a sneak peek into their lives. But the ambition was to kind of say, how do we create a more equally balanced consulting industry with 50-50 at all levels. But of course, it will take time because right now the senior parts of most consulting companies, the partner level is 85-15 or 80-20, and so that will take some time to get to 50-50 unless we just fire old people like me, old male, and we live of knowledge. Maybe that's not the viable solution. So the next level of ambition was to say, so how do we get to 50-50 at all levels? But we do that by saying at least we have actually 50-50 now recruiting at the entry levels, and so if we then when we then promote from entry level to the next level, if we do that also 50-50, then over time we would end up in a 50-50 setup. Hopefully, of course, there's something about people leaving along the way, but how can we then reduce that? How can we also attract people of equal, backgrounds and the likes, so that we over time get to that. And so we start monitoring that ambition of at least then, is, or have we some kind of bias in our promotion, and be clear on that and using that data point. Because if we are then at recruiting into the partner level, and at that point we have a 70-30 setup or 60-40, is it also 60-40 or 70-30, or is it skewed one way or the other? Then at least having that conversation, whether it's due to biases or other things, I think is an interesting conversation as one. So that's just one part of the conversation here. And then of course, I think the broader inclusive perspective, which is not just gender, but it's also all kinds of other parameters as well, as I think is super important, and links also to psychological safety and other topics that are hot these days. How do we create that feel of being included for whom you are, and have the ability to say what is actually on your mind, for the benefit both of the company and yourself. But it takes quite a lot of work, and it takes quite a lot of work, especially from senior people in the organization, to create that atmosphere, that trust and safety.
What type of sorry, I have a question. What type of structures or processes? Because that was one thing Ida and I were speaking a lot about prior to this, actually. But what type of structures and processes have you put in place and implement, if I may ask, Henrik, to support this? Because I think that is needed to support it. You can't just not speak about it and point out the issues. You need to structure it in a way. What have you done?
I think we've done all kinds of things, both from the recruiting to trying to do that less biased. We focus quite a lot on not on bias training as such. We discussed that. We have something. I don't think that it's the most impactful thing to do, bias training, but that could be a long discussion. I think we've tried to set up targets, but I think what we actually had most impact on is we did a female leadership program that was a 50-50 leadership program. So there were as many. So I was part of the first cohort of people. So we tried to do a mixed double setup, so that I was mixed up with a talented young partner, a female, and then that kind of initiated a lot of conversations that made both sides see it with more complexity, and it was not just because we were evil old men. And for me also to realize that there was also broader perspectives on things. I think that was paving a way for a much more nuanced conversation around this topic, and I think that has paved the way. And then of course repeating the message over and over again, that this is what we want to aim for, but then also explain why it's hard, and why it's hard to change the numbers, and that's why we need to look at the leading indicators and not the final number of how many women are in the board. Our board has actually changed from being 09 to be 4 females and 5 males. So that has also been a nice change along the way. But I think on this creating a different culture, I think that was super important to have this mixed double set up, and that paved the way for a lot of the later conversation. The challenge right now for us is we are actually promoting a substantial level of talented females from our own ranks, actually a little bit above the pool. They are outperforming, and we are supporting them in different ways. But then when we recruit senior people from outside, and we recruit quite a lot of partner from other consulting companies, they're the pool that we recruit from is also skewed a lot. So that kind of waters out the benefit that we're having from actually having put in place a strong pipeline of female candidates, that we hire senior males outside and into the company. And that's why it's hard to just look at one number and say that's saying that you're not doing that much because it's going so slow. Yeah, but the underlying dynamics is actually that we are doing quite a lot, but
Yeah.
we're still kind of in an industry where there's structural issues that we need to fix in a way.
Yeah. It looks like Rikke really believes with you. You've got it right, Henrik.
Yeah, and Rikke is much more clever on this topic than me, so it should have been her sitting here in my shoes. I've been working with her, and she's super skilled and knowledgeable.
I hope you play the game, Rikke. It's gonna be
Yeah.
fun to see how you do against Henrik here. All right, and speaking of the game, let's look a little bit at what we're doing today. So, as mentioned, this is a game looking into the biases, and of course, the biases are sort of the underlying layer of what can become inequality in different ways at an organization. So it's a barometer game we're playing today, and there are 5 chapters, and you have 2 goals to keep track of. You will see them in the game board as well. These are your little parameters, your goals. And the first goal is to identify and reduce hidden biases to foster fairness, inclusion across the workplace. And the second goal is to build a culture where diverse voices are valued and every employee feels a sense of belonging. So this speaks very much into what you were saying, Henrik, about both wanting to have employees that feel valued and also trying to remove some of these hidden layers that are actually upstraining us a little bit and moving in the direction that we would like. And there is only one sort of theoretical layer or methodology that we have placed in this game, and that is actually the European Union's Gender Equality Index. Do you know this index, Henrik?
Yeah, but not in all its details, but I've heard about it and seen it, but not more than I've not been preaching it to customers or internally.
No, and of course there is not that many theoretical methodologies or theories in general about these issues. It's a very new sort of thing we're dealing with, right? But this is a great indicator of kind of explaining where a country is in their equality equation. And basically, there are sort of 6 domains that you keep track of, and that's what these 6 domains are then also present in this game. And it's work, money, knowledge, time, power, and health. And we can dive into this if it makes sense afterwards, but I just thought I should mention that it is in there. So the data profile will be laying up against this. All right. I think we've been talking a lot now. And I think I will ask Isabella and Henrik for you to actually enter the game and maybe answer your first chapter option. And while you do that, you can just mute me for a second if I'm making too much noise. I'm going to explain to you guys out there who don't know actually how the game board works really quickly. Right. So there's going to be a link sent in the chat in about a few minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes, so that everybody viewing can also click into the game. And how it goes is that you click the link and you will arrive to our guest login page. So you simply add a guest name. You can just write your name. You don't have to write guest. Choose your position. And voila, you have entered our session. And you click play game. Now, if you don't want to listen to me speak anymore, you can just click the link and view the tutorial of the game board. But I'm going to just explain to you how it works up here as well. So this is our game board that's called the barometer. This is sort of your climate. Are you in a red, yellow, or green zone? And you have your stakeholders up here. They are going to give you some comments on based on the decisions you make, and you can also click in on them and see their own personal barometer about where are they in the process. And of course, every single choice will definitely make your stakeholders move in different directions. And you will get an introduction about the company. You are newly hired and have to sort of make this assessment and help create more equality based on these underlying biases that you may find. And then you have 4 options that you choose between for each chapter. and you simply click choose, and you will get immediate feedback on what you did right, what you did wrong, and how it actually moved your 2 goals. And then you click continue. So it should be fairly simple. All right. Now I am going into the host view, as we call it, which is sort of the back end of Acti, the facilitator side, where I can actually keep track of everybody who's playing the game. So now I am choosing Henrik and Isabella as my players here. Henrik, you are green. Isabella, you are red.
Okay.
And you have both made your first choice, and you've actually made the same choice.
Oh, exciting.
And the first chapter is about a hiring process, and what you're seeing is that there's this, in Danish we call it the rip rap rup effect, which is basically a tendency to kind of favor profiles that look similar to you, the one you have yourself. And Henrik and Isabella, you both chose to implement a blind recruitment process. Why? Henrik, do you wanna be the one starting this explanation?
Yeah, I think one of the arguments is, of course, to avoid the mini-me kind of bias, whatever you could call it, but also knowing, actually being taught, I think, from Rikke Brønner back in the days, how much bias we have in just looking at a picture or the wordings that we put into to the things. The challenge is that I would do this as a process, but my own way of recruiting people, I actually never look at their at what they write in their letter of application. I only look at their resume of where they've been working and how often they've been shifting roles and the likes. So that is my way of trying to take out some of the biases and how they boost their own egos and the likes, because they could write anything in their description of themselves, whereas how long time they've been working in which roles and how often they swap roles and the likes, that gives me some indication of the profiles and their competencies. But that's just how I approach it. But I know that science says that this probably would be the right way of it, and we've been doing some of it. We haven't gone all the way in implement, but we are discussing back and forth a lot, because on the other hand, we're also a very relational company, and
Exactly. Yeah.
we're bringing in a lot of people that is already in our network, or that I know from back in the days, or used to work with at a client side and the like. So already by then we know them, and then it would be strange to try to make it anonymous and be biased in that sense. But of course, then we should do that throughout the hiring process, and how we can have a conversation that takes off the mini-me bias later in the process.
And you said you actually put this letter of what do you call it, the letter of application, you actually don't even read. You're not afraid of missing out on anything?
No,
in that?
No, I take that into conversation then later. If I would be looking, so that I'll take that later and then validate some of that I probably the recruiters have read through that and maybe sorted something out, but it's just, I think that's been my learning over the many years of trying to recruit people, that it's more the patterns in the CV that I look for than how they boost their own egos.
I chose it actually because of, I think, the same reasons, but also because here at Acti we also have a very structured process on how we're doing it. So everyone are being measured, if you will, on the same in the same structure. But it's also the one thing, when I was reading the feedback, it says, however, some managers find it hard to assess cultural fit, which they argue is important. And that's somewhat what you are saying as well, Henrik. How do you then have a candidate that you also need to fit into small teams or into the culture that implement, or we here at Acti have been made over the past couple of years? and that is difficult. But you also want to maybe hire someone who can absorb that cultural fit, to come in with some fresh ideas and point of views.
But I agree as well that like the cultural fit is not something that you are really reading in the application process, because that could just be, feeding your own ego or writing exactly towards the job application description, right? Whereas when you are sat in front of someone, it's a much easier and dynamic way of getting to know what is actually your personality, what culture would you even fit into our culture. Whereas reading a piece of paper, that could really be anything and nothing.
Yes.
It's like reading a text with emojis. You have no idea.
You don't know.
Exactly. But on the other hand, there's also, of course, bias playing out in the conversation when we get to the recruiting. So we'll probably get to that later in the game. But it's there's a lot of biases that pops up along this.
All right. So that was your first challenge, and you were very in agreement. So that's no fun. Okay, you can move on to the next one. So
Clever mind thinks alike, Ida.
I know, but I was hoping for a little bit of competition, get a little edgy. So the second chapter that is coming up here is about the performance evaluations. So again, it seems like there's been some favoring of the people who have sort of the similar background or as yourself. And you have then been given this job that, well, you need to fix this process. You need to make the evaluations more fair. You need to make sure that every candidate gets the same amount of time and is appreciated for the same tasks. So you basically have to develop a fair and objective evaluation criteria, which is focusing on measurable outcomes instead of this is my employee and she's great at making good lunch and she deserves 100 points for that. And then you'll maybe have another person who is not the cultural bearer of the company, who is doing a great job at what he's doing, but maybe is not getting the praise for that work because he's maybe not being seen in the same way.
All right.
You have both in there. Henrik, you made a choice?
Yes.
I'm gonna make a choice, but yeah.
You chose to make a review committee.
Yeah.
All right.
Not that I'm up for a lot of bureaucracy and hierarchies that would not look like me. But I think both in the description here, but also looking at the three other options, this was the one that was kind of pointing most towards trying to create transparency and also knowing that it's really hard to do objective standardized measures across. That would be really hard. And I think the 360 evaluation, at least in my view of that, would just kind of boost even more of the supporting. At least I've seen some companies in Norway, you could say that where it's not the right evaluation that comes out. It's just kind of patting each other on the back.
Yeah.
That 360 in a good way, because it's just kind of if you do scratch my back, then I'll scratch yours, and then the value is not that high. So this idea of having somebody at least also looking at some of the numbers, back to this idea of do we promote relatively from where we promote from, just kind of looking through some of different lenses of figuring out is this skewed in one way or the others, and if you cannot argue why it has a rationale to it, then you need to go back and revisit your proposal for how you promote. That would be my take on it, and maybe I should share that data point that we
yes.
quite a lot about back in when we were discussing this in the management industry. Could also again have been Rikke Brønner sharing that data because she has so many facts. But the point was the time we spend, in this appraisal period where we are promoting people. if you took a clock and took the time on how long time you speak about a male, it's substantially longer than the time we spend talking about a female. Even females talk less time about females than they do talk about males. So
That's
there's
crazy.
a structural bias here on promoting and sharing good stories about the men, whereas we don't share the same time and energy on promoting females. So there's definitely a task of sponsorship and promoting that is also built all the way into how much time we spend on it. And I think that's why it is probably also nice to have some kind of external lenses on that performance appraisal.
And it's so crazy that's how the
Yeah,
data kind of adds up, because like it must almost be something that's just been
like
passed
why?
through us through the society for generations, right?
Yeah.
That the we shouldn't talk as much about ourselves, maybe, or I don't know, but I think it's a crazy fact that it's still like that.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think hopefully it's becoming a little bit better, but it's definitely why it makes sense to at least have different ways of checking up on are we getting to the right results at the end.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Right. So, Henrik, Leif is asking a question here in the comments section about what option would you like there have to be in if you could make your own option in this case?
No, but I think a version of this, but maybe with a little bit more of having the leadership team, the quality of the leadership team's conversation around the evaluation and the performance evaluation. I think there's something about building that to a higher quality, maybe also with, as I said, different lenses of acid testing the result that they can come out with before they can't submit that. That I would rather strengthen the local perspectives in this conversation, so raise the quality of the performance evaluation in the leadership team, than having an external do it.
Mm.
And hence not just a unbiased training, but actually a more tailored support on how to create the quality in that conversation with different data points or different conversation aspects or ways of facilitating that conversation. I think that would be my preference of inducing something like that into an organization.
Mm.
Yeah.
Again, Rikke Brønner adding knowledge to the conversation. Thanks, Rikke.
Yeah. So,
We need
if you haven't noticed the comment here, Rikke is saying that women often talk more about emotions than we do with male colleagues, and I definitely can nod to that.
Which is maybe why we are sometimes being shushed on.
We are
so that's another of my hobby horses. I think there's also something about male, female, or masculine how do we see it? I see myself as a more in line with my female values a lot.
Mm.
And so there's also something in having that nuanced perspective, because I hate being put in a box the other way around, that I'm just a male that can only talk about X, Y, and Z and cannot talk about emotions. I've been leading up psychologists for 12, 15 years, so I definitely have talked a lot about my emotions
Emotions. Yeah.
and trained that, but also have a background and a personality that is more in line with more female values, I think. So it's that, I think that's also something. Another perspective to the inclusiveness is also for females to be open for that males also come on a scale
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
masculine to feminine.
It's also a knowledge perspective, I think, isn't it, Henrik? Maybe we don't know that males are thinking one way, females are thinking another way. Being put in boxes is not necessarily the way forward. So maybe embracing that and having that conversation before starting to change it. Or I'm sitting here asking myself questions. So how could we actually change these things? Like,
Mm.
what should we do in order for more females to speak up? Or
Mm.
I think
and that's difficult.
that's some of the work that we're trying to do also with more podcasts and more events and stuff in Dansk Industri. So more to come on that. So follow that.
Yeah.
But I think for me it's having more conversations, more curiosity, more questions as to trying to understand the other side of
Yeah.
the table. And of course I know that I'm a male, but the point is just, and of course that comes with a set of biases often. But just again, I was brought up in a really socialistic type setup with 30 families living and eating together every night. That of course influences me and my values and my way of seeing the world in as much of an important way than if than many other things. So again, lots of things impacting how we see the world and how our values are shaped in this. So, but I think the essence for me is having curious conversations and asking for feedback, because sometimes other people see you as something you don't see yourself as, and then I think that is also a way of pushing the perspectives,
broadening the perspective.
non-biasing yourself in some of the aspects, because you
removing the unconscious part of the equation.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense, and I'm really happy that you said this with curiosity, Henrik, because that's also my personal belief, is that instead of getting angry at each other or disagreeing, like if we were just curious, we don't have to agree. We just have to sort of understand where we are not agreeing. So I'm with you on that one. Curiosity is also where I would start. Isabella, did you choose a different option?
Yeah, I chose choice number 3, but I was actually in doubt if I should have gone with choice number 1 and again added into a more structured process. But I chose choice number 3 because I was like, okay, maybe we also need to start up higher with creating awareness with the ones that can actually affect the processes going into the organization, like the recruitment processes, the onboarding, that the ones that can make all the decisions. So if we can create some awareness around bias and what it is, then maybe that will kind of level itself down into the decisions being made. That was at least my conclusion when I made the decision of choice number 3. That there's also an educational perspective to understanding and create self-awareness around not only bias, but also diversity and gender equality and so on, cultural differences, that's okay to have that, and how can we embed that in our organization and in our teams? Yeah.
But it also makes. Sorry,
I think,
Henrik, please go ahead.
I think it is also probably a better choice than mine, but I think the idea of if you could do the intersection between our two choices, then that would be my preferred version of it.
I think so too, and we actually also, Ida and I, prior to this, was talking about if we could combine some of these choices, or if we could like make several choices in this game, it would be perfect.
I think actually we decided that we wanted to do every single choice, but in an order. So then we would do try to do something, do a training, try to do something, do a talk or something. All right. Moving us back here, because I can see that you are both more or less right on top of each other. But Isabella, you actually have 10 more points than Henrik currently.
But she also has the cheat code. So
she also has the cheat code. So I don't know if you deserve this, Isabella.
Why not? Why not?
All right. No, but let's have you moving on, because again, time is running away with me, because you have so many important and valid points. So I'm going to ask you to move on to the next chapter, where we are looking into actually gender bias in leadership, which is right up your alley, Henrik. And the issue here, or the dilemma being presented to the player here, is that the leadership promotions seem to favor men, and of course this is making a huge imbalance in the decision-making process, because there are so many lost nuggets coming from the gender that's not being represented, right? So your goal is to kind of ensure that women have equal access to becoming leaders in this company, right? And how you do so is then the challenge.
Yes.
And Henrik, you already made your choice.
Yes. Putting pressure on you. It's better. Now you show what goes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Isabella, did you make your choice first?
I did make
You
my
already.
choice just
Okay.
as I was looking up. Just as I was looking
All
up.
right.
So
Well, you both made the same choice.
no. I made choice number 2.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh yeah, sorry, no. I'm looking at the chapter number. But Henrik, let's start with you since you were quick at this.
Yeah, so I think it's back to this point about how do we sponsor, whether it's mentor or sponsorship, a long conversation on nerdery wording. But I think that the idea of having people that sponsors women and can share the stories of what they're really good at and why they're excelling, and it's both counting this part about how long time do we speak, but also sharing the good stories on one hand, but maybe also in consulting, it's a lot with selling assignments. How do we get into commercial networks and the like? So how do we actually help females get on that journey, or invite them into some of those circles or networks that has been there for many years that are in some companies closed up? And so this idea of like we did with the mixed double training that we initiated, I think there's something really powerful in creating those, and also it's super easy just to say that of course I support the agenda of having more females in leadership positions, but if I'm connected with one or two that I commit to helping, then it becomes much more tangible and it becomes much more real, and I might also learn something along the way myself. So, and that's why the mentorship versus sponsorship, yeah, long conversation, but I think there's something about also knowing that it's not just one way, that I'm here, as a old Y guy to help you, but on the other hand, you can also help me and push me and my thinking, and maybe also push some of my results, because my clients are also asking for a diverse team in delivering the assignment or in selling the assignment. So I think for me at least that was the obvious choice.
I think that's a really valid point, and it's definitely one I haven't thought about, is that of course this goes both ways. Just because that one is a mentor does not mean that the other part has nothing to teach and say, right? I think that is I think we need to put more focus on that. That is a great point.
But generally, a mentor program, not only for females but also for males, I think is only a good thing. Because all of a sudden, if we do only a mentor program for females, then we emphasize on supporting females into a leadership position. But there are also some males that are struggling there as well. So how can we create an equal playing field? I think that is the glasses that I would put on, and that was actually the reason why I did not take that choice, because I was afraid that it would be too heavily focused on the females, and then all of a sudden it becomes this uneven plate. So that's the reason why I actually chose choice number 2, to have some criteria that is transparent to all, so we can all follow that. So I can work my ass off, and so can you, Henrik, and then we will be promoted equally if we actually fulfill these criteria. And then we can do the mentoring in between as well. I think it's very nice. But if I can see that I can level up and work my ass off and be promoted, then all good.
And thanks, Rikke, for kind of detailing what I was kind of alluding to with the mentor versus sponsorship. Women are over mentored, under sponsored. Love that kind of framing of it. So I think that's definitely the point of it's not, it's not just helping. It's lifting and connecting and doing all kinds of other things that sponsors them. Whereas men are probably also more prone to push for that and get that support. So it's not just telling them what to do that you need to go sell, but it's actually helping them sell and connect them to my network, for instance.
And now Leif, I see, is adding to that comment, asking what is the difference between sponsor and mentor?
For me, the simple way of mentor is more kind of telling, whereas sponsor is helping.
All right. So a sponsor is a more active player, you could say.
Lifting. Whereas the other one is telling you what to do, is maybe more clever. The power leveling is different. Whereas the sponsor is lifting and supporting and not just telling. That's my simple version of it. I'm sure that I has a better definition, but we can take that later. No, but I think
maybe it will come.
but I think that idea of also sharing the good stories and in that way sponsoring a person and supporting. So there's much more active support, at least in my view, in the sponsor role than in the mentor role, where it's more sharing of all your great experiences as an old white male
Yeah.
or female.
All right. So it seems, Henrik, that your choice at least got you moving in front of Isabella on the what we'll call the climate barometer here. But Isabella, your points are actually further ahead than Henrik's. And what we can see down here, if we scroll down to the two barometers, that we have these two goals. We can see that Henrik, you are really focusing on making a more inclusive workplace culture. Isabella, you're maybe focusing more on like this personal bias awareness and mitigation. So that's also really interesting to kind of see these two approaches, but in the game board as a whole, you're still very close to each other.
Yeah.
All right, let's move into chapter 4, please, where we are looking into cultural bias in teams. And what's happening in this chapter is that some employees from minority cultures don't feel seen or heard or valued in team discussions. And I feel like that is probably one of the biggest sort of, okay, I don't know what to do about that kind of situations. Excuse me. But anyway, you are tasked with creating more equality in these teams. And of course, you have your 4 options. Again, I remember it as personally when I played it through earlier, wanting to sort of choose all of them in combination. But that of course is not quite possible.
I think this is the most difficult chapter.
I agree, especially because it's not so much like there are a lot of layers in team dynamics, right? It's not only, again, you cannot isolate the pains and all of a sudden there are a lot of different things you need to take into account. I'm not clicking on anybody's choice until Isabella has made hers.
I'm done.
There we go. All right. So.
Okay.
All right. Henrik has overtaken you, Isabella.
No.
What did you do, Henrik?
Okay.
I went for the facilitating, and I think for me at least, here it was. I put something in the wording, and maybe for good or bad. But for the cultural sensitivity workshop, as I read it, was not just a training, but as much a conversation around, understanding it from different perspectives. So that was at least what caught my attention on this, was how do we create that conversation around different perspectives and different cultures, and create that platform for having that conversation, and that are important, and maybe that also pushed a little bit on the personal bias awareness on my score. So that was also part of it. I think that's important to have that room to have that conversation out of the running the daily business.
Yeah.
Looking back, and we were having a nice, Ida. We were also mentioning the communication part, the dialogue, creating awareness. So I think I would agree with you, but I was actually very much in doubt here.
What did you choose, Isabella?
I went with number 4. Rotate team roles and responsibilities.
So this was the answer about where at team gatherings you kind of switch roles, so there will be one facilitating or driving the meeting one day and another one the next time.
Yeah, but I maybe see that you should do number 1 first and then could do number 4 afterwards, because you're not really sure if the team is up for rotating and taking those responsibilities. So are you imposing something to the team that is not really asked for? So maybe creating some communication and dialogue prior should have been the right way. But again, you have to make a decision, and I did.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
see also the feedback you got here was that some of the members, of course, are having this feeling of how it sort of disrupts their stability and their normal work processes, which again, of course, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But maybe it creates some awareness from the back door, if you will, because it's still okay. Now I understand if we are to work this way and change the roles. Okay, my colleagues are working one way, I'm working another way. Okay, maybe we should do C and start collaborating in a different way, because we are now taking on some different roles and responsibilities and becoming more knowledgeable in that sense.
Yeah, so this sort of talks into the curiosity a little bit, right? About then you try to be a leader, and when people don't listen to you, then you also try getting frustrated. But how do you deal with that? And whatever
And how,
can be, right?
exactly, yeah.
I heard of some funny in real life. It's super hard to do this proposal. I think it takes a lot of energy and a lot of, and in a busy daily life, it's super hard to do. I heard
Yeah.
about an organization that tried to put male in the minority role. So they set up different meetings where the ratio would be skewed in the opposite way of what it normally was in that company.
Mm,
So it was a consulting company. So sitting there, two males out of 20 or something in an important meeting, and then with 18 females, and just to
okay.
sense on their own body how it was to be the minority and be that. It created some interesting conversation afterwards of sensing how it was on your own body. And of course, it takes time if you had to do that with all males. But it was just a fun experiment that they tried out a different number of times with some of these key males in the organization, so that they could feel how that was, that the not being the dominant voice in that meeting.
Interesting.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, I'm sorry to break up the interesting discussion, but we are really running out of time now. So if you would please make your last choice so that we get to finish the game. And the last choice is about networking. So and that's talking, of course, a lot into something that Henrik has mentioned today about how being a consultancy, networking is a very big part of it, right? And knowing people. But the issue in this chapter number 5 is that leaders and managers are again mentoring candidates based on this affinity bias of choosing those who look like themselves, meaning that some will just never get this opportunity of getting, say, a mentor in the regards to this. So you again have to sort of redesign this process. How do you ensure equality in a process like this? And as you can see here, Isabella, you're in front on the personal bias awareness, and Henrik is in front on creating a more inclusive workplace.
I was in doubt in this one.
This was a difficult one, I thought, as well.
Yeah, it is.
All right. So I think update data. Okay, I think we have a winner. And as you can see the points, it is
Henrik.
Henrik. So you get this one.
By a few
There we go.
points.
By a few points.
But enough.
So Henrik, you chose this training on the bias. So actually trying to tell them this is a thing.
Yeah, I think all of them had good elements, but it was it was a super hard one, I think. And hopefully this topic is something that over time is evaporating due to all the other work that you've been doing across the organization to create a more inclusive workplace. But I think some kind of training might help on this one, to at least jumpstart the awareness and again get different perspectives on it. It's super long-term work to get it out of the system, I think. But you need to start somewhere, and sometimes maybe it's not the training in itself, but it's creating the opportunity to reflect on your own patterns and what's happening around you and who you connect with and the likes. And maybe you could actually also set it up with a connected mentor program and a diverse set of people in the training program. And so you could kind of take something from all of the different solutions, put into
Yeah.
that.
Agreed.
Agreed. Yeah.
I wish I could do that.
Me too. Me
A
too.
little bit of
of
everything.
this, a little bit of that.
Exactly.
All right, so this has been an absolutely amazing session, and thank you so much for sharing all of your great insights, Henrik. We are
Yeah.
unfortunately out of time, but please go in and click on your data profiles if you've played through the game and see how it is. Thank you so much for taking out the time today, Henrik, to
Thank you very much.
spend with us and shed some light on what it is actually like to be dealing with these issues in real life, because we are a little bit more theoretical on our end. So thank you so much for taking the time, and I hope that that you would partake another time where we hopefully can go a little deeper into some of these really interesting discussions.
Always. Thanks for inviting. It was fun, and it's of course always more fun when you win, right, Isabella?
I don't even want to go there.
All right, before you
losing.
guys get too beefy, I'm going to end it, and then you can take this in the private line.
Yeah, thank you,
All
Henrik.
right.
See
Have
you.
a great evening. Bye.
Bye.